What if justice wasn't just about systems, but about the soul? Welcome to the Spiritual Justice Show with me, Eric S. Lee. You've heard me say it before. For too long, we thought restorative justice alone could save us. But repairing harm without changing systems doesn't end the cycle. Social justice fights for equity, but without spirit, the work becomes a grind. Transformative justice seeks culture change, but without compassion, it struggles to hold. Spiritual justice completes the circle. It heals the heart while changing the system. It restores dignity while shifting culture. It brings spirit back into justice. Each week, I'll bring together leaders, healers, and change makers to explore a new vision of justice: restorative, transformative, and deeply spiritual. And people like you, spiritual justice warriors who choose courage, compassion, and creativity in action.
Everyone, I'm Dr. Pat, and Eric and I have a fantastic show for you today. Let me just open by saying this. I mean, you heard enough about the tip of the iceberg of what Eric is doing. But you have to ask yourself a question, or at least I do. How does somebody get there? Meaning, what are the influences that a person may have in their lives on who they are, who they want to become, what they can learn, how to move beyond what seems like a never-ending array of challenges, obstacles? But what if you were to be introduced to some incredible people that suffered unconscionable travesty? What if those people were to give you lessons, wisdom, knowledge to live by? That's what Eric is doing today. Today, as we look at beyond the veil of spiritual justice, and we look at the foundation, our path, how do we get to atonement? How do we get to joy and healing? And Eric, you're bringing it through Viktor Frankl, aren't you?
Yeah. Dr. Pat, first of
You
all, I want to
are.
back up and say I have missed you. I was traveling for the holidays last time. I wanted to be with you so much, but here we are today. So
I
it's
know.
good to be with you again. The way you frame that is wonderfully. And yeah, Viktor Frankl. Um, I'm going to just jump in a little bit
Do it.
and talk about how I got and happened upon Viktor Frankl. And I don't, it our journeys are our journeys, right? And they cover distance from where we were to where we are. And it's hard to say, where on my journey, how far I had climbed when I happened upon Viktor Frankl, but I was on my way. And I was on my way enough to know that I wanted to help people, that I wanted to inspire people, that I wanted to uplift people. And that was manifesting in a coaching practice. And I was taking a coaching certification course. And one of the suggested readings was A Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And, first couple shows, we talked about youth and impact and my story and overcoming trauma and trauma becoming, the kintsugi, scar that we cherish and becomes part of us that we can offer for people to help them elevate, right?
Mhm.
And as I read that book by Viktor Frankl, the realization was, look, this guy was in a concentration camp. This is Holocaust stuff. And he said, there's going to be some quotes, and I'm going to give you one right now. And the quote, one of the quotes that jumped out to me initially was, "Those who have a why to live can bear almost anyhow."
Mm.
And so, here's this guy who was staring at death, and death was all around him, and most of the people he loved and spent time with were perishing, and he came up with that. those who have a why can bear almost any how. He wasn't saying, oh, this was a travesty. He wasn't saying, oh, this was ridiculous. He was going into our inner power. And that struck me. And it was like, I was overcoming my life. And, in relative terms, I'm going, I didn't do the Holocaust. So surely this can help me. And then the other quote that I want to jump into this one, just back to back. And forgive me for this, but it's just like it's Viktor Frankl. And so it's these two powerful quotes that help guide me. But then there's a underlying philosophy that came later, and we'll talk about this later on, that really was foundational as well. And it's like, he said this, and this is a Holocaust guy in a concentration. Everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given circumstance. In any given circumstances. Again, we talk about trauma-informed therapy and behavior and services and all those things and what we've had to overcome to get here. And it's great. We're wonderful. We overcome our stuff and we can be contributing citizens and we can help uplift others. And this guy was in a concentration camp. And
Yeah.
this was the overriding theme that was coming from that. And so for me, as we talk about spiritual justice, it's like if we can share this with the youth that we're serving, that we're mentoring, that we're helping to uplift, when they discover their meaning, their purpose, they don't just they don't just heal, they become the healers.
Yeah.
And we're in this to solve society, one individual at a time, albeit. But it's like the other thing that came up for me, it wasn't necessarily Viktor Frankl, but it's like, have you, Dr. Pat, and I just went on a rant, excuse me.
No,
But
keep
if
going. Because I'll
have
tell
you
you,
have you have,
keep going.
have you've heard the adage, give a man a fish and he eats for a day, teach a man to fish and he eats for a lifetime.
Hmm.
Well, when I was going through my coaching training, they took it a step further. And this is what I want to give to the youth. And this is what I want to help just further the evolution of humankind. And that's, give a man a fish and he eats for a day. Teach a man to fish and he eats for a lifetime. Teach a man to teach others how to fish and you solve world hunger. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where we're at. When we point youth towards meaning and purpose, we're pointing them to their healing. We're pointing them to a way that they can overcome all of this. And in pointing them in that direction, Dr. Pat, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? We're here in service, right? And that's what we end up modeling. And so, what do kids do? They follow what they've been modeled. And sometimes their parents aren't there to do that. Sometimes the people closest to them aren't there to do that. What we can. And so that's where I'm at. I'm gonna pause. I'm gonna take a couple of deep breaths because I know you're gonna have wisdom, you always do, and perspective to help elevate this.
Well, I want to go back to what you said of what Viktor Frankl teaches, because you see, if you learn that you have the one thing that people cannot, nobody can take it from you, that freedom to choose how you will be in the world, in your life, in the worst situation, and he was in the worst situation, then do you know what you are giving up? Giving up victimhood. You see, Viktor Frankl was a victor. And what he did is exactly what you just said. He went on, right, to eat the fish, to learn how to fish, to teach how to fish. And what he ended up with now as a result of that horrific experience, now through his book, which I was given as well, which helped me get to sobriety. I was given that book. And that is a book that you read every year. And I don't quite understand why that book isn't circulating more. Because every youth group that I work with, I get them a copy of that book. Why is it that we do that, Eric? It's all the reasons you just said. Because if we can teach our youth to embrace, adopt, manage, and activate their freedom to choose how they will go through life, they will be able to understand not just why, because why becomes irrelevant now, but how. They will learn the how. How do I get past this? See, this is what you're teaching, but this is a divine purpose that cannot come if you're a victim. Would you agree?
You know, I love you, Dr. Pat. You know, it's an enigma, right? It's and I've had this conversations several times in the restorative justice realm, and as we talk to youth, and as we change systems, and as we, try to elevate and uplift young souls, right? And it's, I came from a place, and I come from a heritage of oppression, right? And so there's this piece about transforming the system of oppression so it takes the boot off the neck, right? But at the same time, I have to walk the tightrope with me becoming this. I don't give a GD about your oppression. I can rise and have and will continue to rise above any oppression, right? So it matters, but it doesn't matter those external circumstances. But you're absolutely right in pointing us to our authentic inner true selves that are and leave it to you. I've been looking at that book for 20 years now,
Yeah,
and I never put it together. Victor. He was a victor. He wasn't a victim. I mean,
yeah,
it's right there in that just little tweak. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. He
yeah,
was victorious. Victorious Frankl, we'll call him. And one last thing. Let me just say one last thing about this. And I'm going to go a slightly little bit about depth here. And it's like, so what we've set up is this this search, right? This intention on the path. And that's not necessarily it either. It's almost like you have to put that intention to discover meaning and purpose aside and just acknowledge that there's something bigger than us that we're here to serve. And as we serve that, our purpose and meaning reveals itself more clearly to us.
mm-hmm,
And sometimes people get confused and they get tripped up, and I did too. And the thought is that we talked about this in the first couple of shows about how people have meditated and they've studied and they've gone to the mountaintops and they've got this yogi and that one and they follow the teachings and something's missing. Something's still not all the way there. And it's not necessarily because you've failed or that you've done anything wrong. It's because now you've reached a point where you're ready for something bigger.
mm-hmm.
And, in 29 degrees, I defined it with this term, and I thought I'd make this term up. Maybe somebody else has it out there, and I'll yield if necessary. But the term that I came up with was divine discontent. That there's just something inside of us that's saying, ugh, this isn't it. This job isn't it. This activity is not getting me there. And then when we align with it, oh my God, enlightenment feels different. That meditation and that sense of ourselves and connection feels different because we have meaning, we have purpose, and it's coming through that connection.
Mm. See, I love what you said. I want to just piggyback off this a minute because I'm going to make a bold statement. There's only one goal in life, and that is to perfect the art of knowing that you have the freedom to choose who you want to show up on as, how you want to show up as that person, and what emotional energy you want to generate. No one can touch you. That is your superpower. That's it. You are your own Marvel superhero with that. And why is that so important? Because the minute you perfect that art, what will happen is you'll start to hear. You see, what you'll start to hear is, oh, I can go sit on a mountain in India. Okay, that feels great. See, it's different than I'm going to the mountain because I don't think I'm smart enough. I have to learn. No, it's the pure art of knowing, just honing that skill that says, in my inner being, my choosing of this moment, my being, my sense of joy and peace may send me to a 30-day in India. May do that. Why? Because I'm choosing it not to run away from something. I'm choosing it because I want to do it and I know I'm enough, but I want to be more. See, we make these decisions, and if you've gone through incarceration or if you've gone through what we're talking about here today, if you've gone through that, somebody somewhere told you you ain't good enough. Somebody somewhere said to you, mark, you got a mark against you. Oh, fail that test. Oh, you ain't good enough. But even with all of those bullets being fired at you, you can choose a different way of being. Now, Eric, weigh in on this. I didn't learn this by myself, and I'm a work in progress. But I'm in the middle of a major life transition, and I know the power that I could have in the moment I'm in today, moving clear across the country. And I walked in to my best friend's home. And this trip is harder for her than it is for me. But I think you learn something when you're homeless. I'm just saying, all y'all out there that have been homeless, I know you know right now what I'm about to say. You're going to be like, amen. When you have been in that situation, even leaving my home, leaving things behind, I'm moving towards something, not because my mind is telling me I got scared. I made a choice of how I wanted to be, how I wanted to feel, and how I feel today. When I walked in this door the other night after a 2-hour delay in the airport, and I realized everything fell into place perfectly, including the 2-hour delay in Seattle. And I walked into my best friend's home, and I walked in there and I said, Linda, this is a beautiful place. This is a beautiful home. The energy here is amazing. You see how little it takes to say that? Mm-hmm. Even if the people around you, Eric, are like, hell no, it ain't perfect. This isn't right. See, the minute we allow that to happen, we shut off the divine. We shut off divine contentment, and you have to understand divine discontentment in your words. Why? Because that divine discontentment is the thing that allows you to step back and say, oh, this may not be it for me. I'm just hanging on to my arrest record that I got when I was 19. And I'm hanging on to the fact that I'm not smart as everybody. And I'm hanging on to my bad relationships. And now I'm hanging on to my family, who is just like sideways over the silliest. Come on now. This is life. And Eric, Viktor Frankl said, you can choose how you go through life. Isn't that what you're saying?
Mhm. Yeah, it's like, and I've got I've got so many concepts that
Go
come through
for it.
my
I want to hear them
mind.
all. Come on now. I want to hear them all. I want to hear them all
So,
because that's enough for
so,
me.
so one of the things you just talked about was just you didn't say it exactly, but you were pointing to how sometimes we and those around us are experiencing some setback, some pain, some trauma, some you brought up the term homelessness, and we feel like those things really diminish us, right? And then you also talked about how the divine is trying to come through us. You didn't say those words exactly, but the divine is continually trying to reveal itself through us and through these experiences. And here's the thing, the kintsugi, and I just want to say a little bit about those who aren't familiar with that terminology, and many of us do know. Kintsugi is the Japanese philosophy around when something breaks,
Mm.
and when you put it back together, they want to put it back together, and they put gold in the glue, and they put gold in the glue to highlight those broken parts so that when that thing is put back together, we acknowledge it as even more beautiful than before it was broken, and acknowledge those broken parts, right? And what that brings me to is that, with Viktor Frankl, you talk about broken parts. He didn't just survive. He took his trauma and turned it to a contribution that we are still talking about in society, and that we are right here. And I don't know how many people we're reaching, but at some point we're going to reach millions
No, my network
that
actually
are
reaches.
uplifted.
Well, let's just be very clear. We are reaching minimally just through this one live show 1.5 million a month, and that doesn't even include the other distribution. Do you know
Yeah,
why we are? For the very thing you're talking about, Eric. It isn't about the numbers. It's about what we're bringing forward in the world, that we are being called to bring this message forward. What, 50 years later? Well, I don't even know how many years later. How many, what is it? Like 80? I don't know. Like, how many years later are you and I talking about an event that a lot of people don't really even think existed? But you see what we're doing. This is what we need to have now to make sense of the senseless, isn't it?
yes, yes. And thank you for that, and thank you for the context of what we can do here. And the other thing that I want to talk about is that Franco becoming, and this is what I believe, and why I believe we're still talking about it. Franco was no different than us in that he tapped into a thing, and that thing is meaning, and we'll call it purpose as well. And that being the gateway or the portal through which the divine enters this realm. And that makes us, and this is something that's just recently become my personal mantra. It hit me like a light. And it was like, oh yeah, and I really have to honor this. And this is my mantra. I am a gateway through which the divine enters life, right? And so once you're able to take that on, it really changes what you aspire to, and the stuff and the things and the accolades, and the status and all that thing kind of naturally subsides. And what gets elevated is what am I here to do that's bigger than me? How do I take this healing and share it? And that's what brings me. And with that, when we do that, when we tap into something and we can identify, and it's so individual. It's going to be art for some. It's going to be music. It's going to be this restorative justice work that we do. It's going to be this beautiful network that you've created. It's going to be social work. It's going to be being a doctor. It's going to be being a mentor. It's going to be being a parent. It could be however you who are watching manifested in your individuation. It's yours, but it is divine. And once you identify that, you begin to value who you are in your existence that much more. And that identity becomes more powerful than the name Eric, or I'm an executive director, or I'm a dad. It becomes more of your identity that is divinely guided and really, really puts you in a place of ascension and connectedness.
Yeah. I mean, this is why you and I are talking about it, because we see something. We see something missing. That's what we're seeing. That's why you and I are talking about it. And usually we see it missing for ourselves first, right? Because this year I've been tested. My faith has been tested. My purpose has been tested. My meaning has been tested. My identity has been tested. It's that discontent you mentioned. Why? Why would the divine do that? Well, that's what the divine does. Divine did it to Jesus. The divine did it to, any scripture, any spiritual practice. Read the stories. Read the Bhagavad Gita. Read whatever you want. There is that thing we call a test. It's not a test of how smart we are. It's a test of our faith. And I don't mean religious faith. So I just want to be clear. I mean, it's the strength of your conviction. So when you're working with youth, it isn't just about, let me help you get through it. It's let me help you build that spiritual justice muscle so that no matter what comes up today, tomorrow, when you're 40, when you're 50, when you're 100, you're going to put on that face and you're going to say, I am the I am. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk about now. What do you think? If you think Eric and I got here by what? Just because we're just super? No. We have had more mentors than I've had shoes. And I got to tell you, I've had a lot of shoes, Eric. Let's take a short break, everybody. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. Before we keep going here, I just want to remind you, Eric S. Lee is bringing a new conversation, a new narrative, but more importantly, a new invitation. The old systems and the old way of doing things, they just ain't working anymore. You know, it's like having a 5-year cell phone in the world we're living in today. And boy, do I have one, and I know what I'm going through with that 5-year cell phone that don't scan, don't update, barely can get anything on it, hitting the buttons, they don't work anymore. See what I'm saying? And you keep clicking it, you keep holding on to it. Instead, when you make the decision to say, I'm going to go get me a new phone this week, this is what we're talking about. This is where you get to choose how you want to move forward one day at a time, every day in your life. No matter what the injustice of the past has been for you, every day you can start over. Eric, how do people find out more about you? Let's make sure they have some information, because this next segment's going to blow everybody away.
So you can get a hold of me at fullcirclerj.org. Full Circle Restorative Justice does work here in Colorado, elevating youth both in the judicial systems and schools, and we try to train communities on how to be more restorative and approach things and conflict a different way. And, if you want to email me, you can go eric.lee@fullcirclerj.org. Reach
Okay,
out
love it.
with a question, with any request. If you want us to come to your
Mm.
school and do trainings, work with your kids, work with your staff, show them a different way, we'd be glad to help.
Come on, families. Families.
Families,
Got to get the
families as
families.
well. Families as well, and that's part of what we're doing, and we've just launched this year, is more community building around the work we do in schools, because we understand that it starts at home, right? And sometimes the goodness starts at home, and sometimes the not so goodness starts at home. But we want to give parents and adults in the
Mm,
community the opportunity to be exposed to these concepts in this different way as well, so
mm,
that they can learn the skills to be more trusted
mm,
adults, more capable mentors for the youth, that are coming along to take over what's next for us.
mm. Did you notice when when I'm channeling Mama Doris, I get the Southern accent?
Yeah,
Did you?
I did. And let me talk about something else. And we're not there
Sure.
yet, but one of the things that this show has shown me that is going to be a need, and that, as we build our spiritual justice website and launch that in the first of the year, we're going to have a spot where organizations who are doing all kinds of good work can register and be part of this spiritual justice network. And those who want to mentor and volunteer can sign up for those organizations. So we become a connector
Mhm,
to get those people who have found their meaning and want to express it and do this work of mentoring youth, can connect with organizations who are already doing the work. So that's a need that's come up through this, that we're going to build out and make sure is available, so
mhm.
that we can take this to the next step and really create this movement.
Yeah. Thank you so much for what you're doing. As somebody that understands what it means to be arrested and what that's like as a young person, and not know what it's no not know the meaning of it, not know the real consequences of it. I've been very fortunate. But I want to talk about this. We've talked about concepts in Frankel. I want to talk about the reality of the numbers. See, we're not just guessing about where we are, what we're doing. There is some information now that's available to us. Why don't you share that with us?
So, I talk about mentorship, and I always talk about, us taking our spiritual development, and the next step for us in doing that is sharing it with youth. And today we're talking about, sometimes that work we've done leads us to, deep purpose and deep meaning. And a lot of times that purpose and meaning has to do with contributing and being of service to something greater than ourselves. And in this case, we're talking about youth, right? And specifically mentoring. And this isn't just a concept that, drew out of space, although we did. But after we come up with these concepts, we do digging and research, and find the data. And from the Library of Medicine, one of the things we found is that mentorship reduce risk behaviors in youth. In one study, 54% of youth were less likely to have been arrested, and 41% less likely to have engaged in substance use after 18 months of mentorship, right? And so there's data that's backing up this. Let's extend ourselves and give it to youth, and see how that can impact them. And the presence of mentors has also been found to reduce all other types of high risk activities like substance abuse, delinquency, and violence. So that's not just pie in the sky. Those are numbers. And also, what we do as mentors, we provide guidance and emotional support. And and let me read this. A 2023 study found that 58% of young people reported that their mentor supported their mental health. And that also goes on to say having a mentor has also linked to a stronger sense of belonging and acceptance. And those are all things that we're trying to create in our programs. I mean, the two main things that we're trying to accomplish and we talked about this in our staff meeting a couple weeks ago. It's like, okay, we're a restorative justice organization, but the work we're doing, what is the work we're really doing? Is showing youth who they really are, right? And we talked earlier about, us coming to the realization that in our connection to the divine, there's no oppressive environment that can slow us down and stop us. We want to show all youth that they are part of that very same thing, that is their divine inheritance, that they have a right to claim at any point. And then the other thing that we want to do is make sure there's a climate and culture that they are a part of in their schools, especially, that nurtures that. So if we can pull the trigger and identify that identity within youth, and then create a climate and culture that nurtures and cultivates that over years, what kind of society will we create then?
Yeah. And I think, Eric, what we're talking about is a new freedom, a new freedom. And here's the thing I love. You and I talking about restorative justice, social justice, spiritual justice, but what we're really talking about is a pathway for all, pathway for all, pathway for all. Our focus is not just on saving our youth, stimulating our youth, generating success, building up confidence, restoring whatever self doubt they've had in who they were, what they've done, bring them to the present moment and show them a future, a world of possibilities so that they do not be a statistic, right?
Right.
A spiritual warrior, as you call it.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't, we didn't talk about the loneliness piece.
Do it.
We've got, yeah, I'm gonna say but really, I don't have the data right in front of me, but loneliness is part of what triggers some of the behaviors that we end up dealing with in schools and in the judicial system,
Yeah.
right?
It's
That this
highest that
sense
it's
of,
ever been. Highest
yeah,
it's ever been, ever.
right, this disconnection. And young people crave belonging, identity, and impact. And they're not only seeking validation, they're seeking significance. And the questions they're unconsciously asking as they experience, and it's like, I've got kids, right? And many parents can identify with this. And there was a point where teenage years hit, and oh my God, we become the dumbest people on the planet. And there's this pushing away. And it's not really a pushing away, but they're going through self-individuation, right? They're trying to really figure out who they are and how they fit, right? And the main question that we have determined during this individuation that they're asking is, who am I and what am I here for?
Mm-hmm.
And that points right to what we've just been talking about, that these young people are so craving. What is their connection to something that's bigger than me that I contribute to? What is my role in this? What am I here for? What is my purpose and meaning? And as we as adults who have really activated that part and really um, stepped into and moved into what that is for us, I know as a parent and my generation or the generation before me raised me. And there was this do as I say, not as I do attitude. I remember coming in and seeing my dad drinking bourbon, smoking cigarettes, saying, "Boy, don't you ever smoke or drink because this will kill you." And as he's drinking and smoking, right? So what is going to happen? I'm going to end up drinking and smoking because that's what's being mentored to me. So as we go into the other side of that pole, and we, as the spiritual seekers who have meditated and done the work and have have gotten a sense of peace and meaning and direction and connectedness of the divine and a sense of our divine selves, and we fully step into that and we turn that into action that is intentionally directed towards helping to elevate youth, what does that mentorship and role modeling do for those youth? That is what they become. You could tell them at that point, you could go to the exact opposite of what my dad told me. It's like, hey, go out and be a heathen, raise hell, young man or woman. But they'll see us being gentle, kind, loving, and living in purpose and meaning, and they will do that. They will do what they are shown and what's shared to them.
But Eric, what you're talking about, this is your why. This
Yeah.
is this is really important because how many times have you heard, why do I got to do that, Eric? What for? I'm not going anywhere. I'm stuck in my life. I'm stuck in my situation. So we have to replace that why with something new. See, part of what you do is foundational to help youth and the families
Hmm.
find a new why.
Hmm.
And it doesn't have to be grandiose. Maybe your new why is make more frequent visits to see your grandma or your grandpa. Maybe it's to take some service and pick up the garbage on the street that you live. See, we tend to go to, well, I want to be like the owner of da 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 billionaire. Okay, that's great. Now, what's your first wise step? Then your second wise step? Because our whys change. I know my why has changed. Right now, I'm thinking about, right now, I'm figuring out my why for next year. And I know I'm going to get it, not because I'm going to sit here and think myself to death, because I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to embrace the joy of possibility that Viktor Frankl showed us. That's the spark that you're talking about giving youth, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Why it's distilling down to that. When you talk about, and I've said a lot about purpose and meaning, and talked about Viktor Frankl and what he espoused to us, and is still encouraging in my mind, me on how to move forward and why I'm moving forward. And society is into the how, and it kills us. We're overrun. We're overrun with how to get away, how to escape, how to numb. But without that meaningful why, we create, a void of disconnection. And this void of disconnection is part of what contributes to loneliness. And now I will go into this study. Axios did a study, and it talked about loneliness. And it talked about loneliness, despair, and disconnection. And in that study they did, 61% of young people say that loneliness takes at least some toll on their mental health. And for 35%, it disrupts them daily. And the cost of that is, drug addiction, mental health problems, where 40% of youth reported persistent feelings of sadness and hopelessness. And 20%, 1 in 5, contemplated suicide because it was so severe. That is what happens when we're so into the how and the what and the stuff, right? And we kind of disparage that piece about connection that is so important. And those of us who are moving forward, when we remain when we remain silent and want to hold on to what we have accomplished for ourselves in our inner peace and purpose and well-being. We need to share it. We need to open up and show these young people what is possible through our work and efforts, and what is possible as far as connection and offering a beacon of light to them in mentorship and us extending ourselves.
You know, I want to talk to you in these last minutes left on what is possible when we discover our purpose. What is possible when we have the courage to develop it in the world? What are you seeing?
So, you know, I can just share an example, and I've got to change his name because we have a confidentiality philosophy that we need to abide by and guides us. But I'm just going to give you, the sketch of what happened. It's like, so, we do work in schools, and part of the work we do in schools is around behavioral referrals. Sometimes it's conflicts, but we also deal with truancy, right? And sometimes kids feel so disconnected that they just stop showing up. And we had this young man who was that was the case. He just felt completely disconnected where he stopped showing up. And so we were called in to help facilitate some work and extend to this young man, which we did. And one of the things we do is we meet with the school individually to see what, the nature of, what went on and what were the circumstances and what's the environment like. And then we're also given the opportunity to speak one-on-one or two-on-one, how many ever facilitators we have with this young person. And part of our goal in any restorative process is to make sure we find out what makes these young people tick. What are their strengths? You may hear in a definition and an explanation about characteristics of restorative processes. One of them is that it is strengths based. So, meaning we don't want to ask and direct a young person towards repairing harm, including repairing harm that's being done to themselves with something that they're incapable of because it's not in their wheelhouse of strengths, right? And so as we talked and learned more, we found out, let's call this young man Jaden. We found out Jaden was really creative and really was into art in many forms. I mean, you know, little sculptures and painting and drawing and all these things. And we ended up putting him on an art project to to help beautify a certain area of the school, which just lit him up. And so once he got a sense of success of completing that project, he got the accolades from the administration and the teachers, the peers who kind of shunned him before, recognized him for his talent and his skills and his abilities. And he became uh, the leader of a group that took on beautifying more parts of the school in subsequent years. And so, we got this kid who's going the wrong way. We do a reach out. We point them to themselves and why they are important and significant and the special talents, abilities, and strengths that they have. We encourage them to lean into that. And that leads them to a sense of something greater than themselves and points them, in this case, Jaden, to a meaning and purpose that completely turned his life around and made that school and community better. And that's just one case, right? If you said we got millions of people out there, what if each one of us took the time to do
Mm,
something like that?
yeah.
What kind of world could we create? What kind of possibilities can we open up to these young people who are so craving a sense of themselves and what they are here for?
Amy Sarah, Amy Sarah, Amy Sarah, my teacher, one day asked me to stay after class. And she sat down with me and she said, I know you're different, but you're not less than. You have skill, you have talent. Amy Sarah, who didn't know me from upside down, but then knew me. She talked to me and I listened. I never forgot it. Now, that mentor showed up in my life once, but I've had hundreds. What you're offering is that conversation that will change a life. My life was changed. No one had ever told me I was okay. I wasn't smart. I was learning different, but I could play an instrument really well, the viola. I could play sports. I could teach others how to play basketball, but I couldn't play to get out of my own way. But they let me play. Why? Because I could see how to help them. This is what we're talking about. One life, one voice. This is not the time to go silent. This is the time to pay it forward. Eric, thank you for today. I'd love to know your personal message. And again, thank you for taking this on and the life work you've said yes to. How do people find out more?
Again, thank you, Dr. Pat. This is wonderful. This platform and this opportunity you've given me, I cherish it. You can find me at fullcirclerj.org, or you can email me at eric.lee@fullcirclerj.org. And one last message, and I'll make it quick. Purpose isn't something you wait to discover. Meaning isn't something you try to feel. Both of those things are awakened the moment you let transformation serve someone else. And no one needs that more today than our youth. Thank you very much. And thank you for tuning in.
And thank you, Viktor Frankl, for butting up against the system, putting your own life at risk to do exactly what Eric just said. We'll see you next time.
Amen. Thank you for joining me, Eric S. Lee, on the Spiritual Justice Show. You've heard me say it before. Restorative justice alone can't get us there. Repairing a wound matters, but if the system keeps cutting, the wounds return. Social justice fights for equity, but if we forget the human spirit, policy feels hollow. Transformative justice shifts culture, but without compassion, the changes just don't last. That's why spiritual justice completes the circle. It heals the heart while changing the system. It restores dignity while shifting culture. It brings spirit back into justice. And that's where you come in. Tune in each first and third Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific Time on the Transformation Network as we rise up, spiritual justice warriors. This means you choosing courage, compassion, and creativity in a call to action. Until next time, walk with courage, lead with compassion, live with spirit, because justice becomes here in the soul, and it continues with warriors like us. Join our community at spiritualjustice.net.